drinking a glass of wine or seeing a piece of art is a moment. Creating a connectivity beyond that or through that is something more, and for eternal, hopefully, and so there's, I think, the really cool part of it. So it was awesome.
And that's why I drink too much. See,
That's it.
It's not about the alcohol. It's about what he just said.
Yeah, so we're not drinking, Aaron, we're learning.
Okay.
Shit's about to go down.
I'm feeling something in my spirit.
Chats and Tats with Aaron Della Vedova.
I am stoked to announce that Solon Clothing is now a sponsor of the show. I've known Ryan and Jeremy for 20 plus years. Amazing human beings, huge supporters of the tattoo community. If you're a tattoo artist and you want to do a t-shirt design with Solon, you can send that over to design@solonclothing.com, and they would love to see what you've got. Again, thank you, Solon, for your support. Thank you, Ryan. Thank you, Jeremy. And now back to the show. Hey, everybody. Welcome back to Chats and Tats with me, your host, Aaron Della Vedova. My guest today. So I think you guys, some of you have seen my episode with Dave Koenig, another great friend of mine, tattoo artist, amazing, talented man. Actually tattooed me on the show. I love it. Got a beautiful little severed pheasant head on my foot. Thank you, Dave. He introduced me to this person because he's doing a project with him. They're working on an artistic project together. This man is a wine, I wouldn't say maker, but he is the conduit between the winemakers and getting great wines to people like you who love wine. He's the CEO of 100 Acre Wines, but he's a little bit different than your average CEO, the way he approaches wine, the way he approaches business, the way he approaches how to fuse art with business. We had a great conversation at dinner, and he just really struck me as an amazing human being. I asked him to come on the show. He said he would, and he's here today. So without further ado, please welcome my guest today, Landon Patterson.
Yeah, man. Excited to see you.
Yeah, I went to that dinner with Dave. I was really tired. I don't know if I seemed that way. We'd worked all day.
Yeah, I was tired too.
I think we were all beat down.
Yeah.
And I was like, oh, yeah. And Dave's like, you really got to meet this guy. And I could tell by the way he said it, I was like, all right, I'm going to go. And then as soon as I met you, it was like, oh, I love this dude.
Yeah.
This guy is amazing. And of course, you brought, I don't know what we were drinking. I had probably a little too much to drink, but a couple of them blew my mind.
You and I going to dinner, all the three of us, after you've worked all day, I've worked all day, drove to San Diego, and it's a school night. So you've kind of got this, I don't want to drink too much. And you like get sucked into the matrix, and that's what it's about in life, is having that connectivity with people and not knowing what to expect. Yeah, that's when the good stuff happens.
And trying not to have too many drinks. When you were giving me wine of that caliber, I was like, all right, I'm drinking this wine.
Yeah.
It was amazing wine that we had that night. But yeah, man, so I learned a lot about you and 100 Acre Wine Group. You guys should all know, I mean, this wine group, 100 Acre Wines, is the top rated winery in American history. Highest rated winery in American history.
Yeah.
That's pretty flippin' amazing when you think of all the different people who are making wine out there nowadays.
Yeah.
And the whole company is led by Jason Woodbridge, the owner, and he is, from how you explained to me at dinner that night, really the brainchild, the genius of this project.
Yeah.
I'm going to let you say more about this, but I'll lead you in a little. I mean, this is a guy who creates wines in a way that really not many people do at all. In fact, there's a big part of the industry that likes to kind of give him shit for it, and there's a bunch of people who love him for it. Very controversial, but the record speaks for itself. What is the name of the award they assign to?
Well, it's not one award. There's probably three of 2 to 3 wine critics that are the benchmark. These are people that have been doing it for 20, 30, 40 years before there was money in rating wine. Okay. And they rate the wines on a scale from 0 to 100. And the higher you go up, each point is more and more difficult to get. Like, for example, to go from 89 points to 90 is maybe 5% more difficult. To go from 99 to 100 is 10,000 times more difficult. Right. So as you raise up the scale, the air becomes thinner and thinner. And so for him, this one gentleman, Robert Parker, who is pretty much the godfather of American wine writers, basically said that Jason Woodbridge is the Da Vinci of wine. What he called him was the Howard Hughes of wine. And he's just received his 41st 100-point score. Now, ratings and do you like wine, food, it's like anything in life, it's very subjective. But to have that much wine ratings, but over a 20-year period of time, like anyone can be good today, but can you be good for 20 years in a row? Consistency. And so for him to be getting that type of press, and now there's a couple other guys and gals that are giving ratings, and they're continuing that on. And so it's really an interesting and trippy thing to be at that level when we're not a big company. We're a tiny boutique wine company, but he's out there just really trying to push the envelope in everything he does. And it's really, it's the greatest part of my job, but it's also the biggest challenge because he's like breaking the rules and breaking convention daily. And I'm like the guy with the mop or like duct tape trying to, bring it back together. So it's cool.
Well, that's amazing. I mean, you just said it. I mean, most winemakers would be lucky to get 100 mark rating one time in their career. And in 20 years, he's gotten 44.
Yeah. 41. Yeah.
41. I'm sorry.
Yeah.
Remarkable.
Yeah. It kind of becomes a little bit, like, I don't want to say it doesn't matter anymore, but it's kind of like, I don't know. He doesn't really talk about it anymore. It's sort of like once he never really talked about it a lot, but I almost think you don't want people to be buying your wines because somebody else said it was great. Right, you want them to be buying it because like they connect with you. And so that's even something he does that's different. He doesn't, normally people rate the wines, get a big rating, and they use it for marketing. We don't do that. You have to buy the wines a year or 2 years and he'll rate them later. So he's not using it for marketing. He's using it to kind of like validate, like, dude, trust me. We're on this journey together. We're on the mothership together. Like, ride with me. You know what I mean? And that's nobody does that. If they do, he was the first to do it.
I would say all genius artists are like that. The genius artists I've ever met, the real savants, they don't give a shit about the critics.
Yeah.
In fact, the whole idea of a critic, it subtly offends them.
Yeah.
That I'm being rated and there's numbers being assigned to this beautiful music I've created. I mean, how do you rate, judge? How do you give a blue ribbon to a painting? It's so subjective. So and it would make sense, the guy being that good at what he does, and you're really not giving a shit about that part. But he can't help it. He still wins whether he cares about it or not,
Yeah, I mean, it's hard with, ratings and anybody. I mean, everyone can rate things. We rate on Yelp, we rate on Google, we rate on all these types of things. It's in the eye of the beholder. And there's a moment of, wait, you're telling me what's good? Like, what the fuck do you know about good art or good wine or good music? Like, you know what I mean? So there's always this tension between who's giving you praise and what do they know? And it's a vicious cycle, though. I mean, especially nowadays where there's more publications, more social media, more outlets to be able to judge you, it kind of becomes a more murky place to be. But, we're just there trying to making perfect wine, being perfect all the time. It's a weird idea because in art, is there something perfect? No, we never get there. So.
Yeah, what was that movie about that sushi guy in Japan?
Oh, Euro Dreams of Sushi.
Yes. Yeah. There's a name. Did you just say the name? The Japanese name for that meditation or that way of life?
Yeah, so Kaizen, they have a few different ones, but Kaizen is sort of like this, every single thing that you do, whether you're washing your hands, making food, do whatever you're doing, you are striving for perfection or progress infinitely, and everything, nothing is insignificant. And it's almost sort of lies in the sort of Buddhist philosophy of like, where they would strive for enlightenment in everything that they do. And so that's a big part of doing it.
Yeah. Reminds me of me and tattooing. It's very much like that. It brings you to the moment when you're in that mindset. Kaizen, I think is how
Kaizen. 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 Kaizen.
Kaizen moment. You're at peace. Yeah. Right? Because you're 100% engaged with washing your hands.
Yeah.
You're thinking of nothing else. And then when you're done washing your hands, you're thinking of the steps you're taking to the next room you're going to. And tattooing is very much like that, obviously, because you can't really be looking at this whole picture. I mean, you do when you design it, but then when you go to make a line, none of that matters. All that matters in that moment is that line has to be right. And then when that's done, you wipe it, the next line, Did
you ever see the movie Last Samurai? With Tom Cruise, where it was like white guy goes to Japan to go battle the samurai. He gets captured, and eventually they start teaching him how to fight. And he's trying to fight his way. And there's one moment where he's getting his ass kicked, and the guy comes up to him and he goes, "No mind." Like, no more thinking about fighting, only reacting.
Right.
And that's a lot of the ideas. Like it's fully tapping into your chi, your inner power, your true self, because all the other crap around us is detracting from our like expressing our purest essence. And so these are all parts of the process, for us.
And it's fun to have something to have in your life that forces you to practice it, right? So for me, it's tattooing. For you guys, it's making wine.
Yeah.
For somebody else, it's restoring old cars. It doesn't matter. Finding an outlet that can bring you closer to that point where you're just focused on the doing of the thing and you're not thinking about what happened 10 seconds ago or what's going to happen 10 minutes from now.
Yeah.
You're just doing the thing.
The power of now, as you've got in your book over here, we'll talk about it later, but like that idea of like right this moment, I think that's where the magic happens. And we don't get to stay there very long oftentimes, especially in modern times. But the longer we can stay there, it's like when we really tap into what it's all about from a creative process,
100%. That's cool. And that's wine. And wine is so unique. I like alcohol. I drink beer. I drink whiskey. I dabble in
me too.
Everything,
We indulge all the vices on the booze side of things, that's for sure.
And I'm no wine connoisseur. I really am not. But my wife kind of is. So when we go out, I turn the menu over to her. She kind of knows my palate.
Yeah.
And she talks to the sommelier. And we usually end up with some pretty decent wines. So I'm lucky. If I didn't have her, I probably would have done more homework on wine. But I've got this like person that just handles
She's
that.
like your little Sherpa, man.
Yes.
She's like taking you up the mountain, through the pass.
100%.
That's
so
great.
Thank you, honey.
Yes.
But over the years, I've really grown fonder and fonder of wine. And there's so much to this, right? But one of the things you had said to me that really struck me as really, I never thought of it that way, is wine is literally evolving inside the bottle.
Yeah.
A plate of food, you sit it down and it's degrading from that point. You eat it right now. It's not going to get any better when it sits there.
Yeah.
Might be some small exceptions when you're, soaking pickles and
but
vinegar.
It's getting colder, it's getting drier, it's getting whatever.
Right.
Yeah.
Whereas wine is getting better. I know there's a point of no return where it gets worse, but for many, many years, it's changing, it's evolving, it's growing. It's like a natural living thing, which separates it from all the spirits and all the other things that people drink.
Yeah.
And I think that there's many reasons why wine has stood the test of time and held this level of appreciation in the human psyche more than probably any other spirit.
Yeah.
Probably for that reason and more. I mean, historically, wine has kind of been around
for sure,
way before, I think, right?
Yeah, no, I mean, they've been making wine, and fermentation has been for thousands of years. I mean, really, beer and wine were essentially created because water was so toxic. There was so much, the water supply was so bad. So in ancient Greek times, they were drinking wine because the fermentation would sterilize the water, right? And the alcohol was not a place where now there's can be other things that can be in there, but not like getting dysentery or getting something like really, really severe that could kill you. So, but then over time, as they started to learn how to cultivate the vine and work with the vine, they started to realize, oh wow, there's no coincidence why we make wine out of grapes. Grapes themselves, you can make wine out of apples. Honey is mead, is honey wine. Grapes we use them because they have the largest amount of esters and aldehydes, which are the chemical compounds that make something have a flavor. So there's hundreds and hundreds of these different
complex.
There's more complex.
Honey, more complex than barley.
Yeah.
So it gives you that level of complexity and artistry.
Yeah, and there's like 5,000-10,000 different types of wine grapes, like little like dogs. There's and there's slightly different evolutions and different flavor profiles. And then you can take that vine and say it's grown in a cold area, and then take it to California and it's grown in a warm area, and it expresses totally differently. And so
the combinations are in the infinite.
It'd be like a Yahtzee cup if you've got like a million dice and you shake it and then you flip it, and that combination, that's one combination. Put all those dice back in, shake it up, and you'll never get the same combination again. And that aliveness, I mean, I always like to say, it was mentioned to you before, people benchmark their lives on when they had like a nice bottle of wine or champagne, and go like, remember when we had that great beer? Remember when we had that martini? You go, man, remember when we drank that bottle of wine on our anniversary? We were in Italy. We were overlooking the vineyards. Because they're alive, it's like some part of it is like connects with us spiritually and emotionally. And when a wine becomes the very best, I'm talking like the top 1/1000th of 1%, like what we try to do, we're trying to make time machines, man. We're trying to get you to taste the past, the present, and also kind of be thinking and experience the future. Because that wine's never going to be the same in 5 minutes, 10 minutes, 1 year. And so like riding that ride is why I think people pay a little more for a nice bottle of wine, as they kind of get somewhat of an elevated experience when it's operating at like very, very peak.
That's cool.
Yeah.
That's cool. I love the way you describe wine. And this is fun for me because I've always wanted this type of person to explain it to me in this type of way. I've never gotten this type of explanation at a winery I visited. Although one of the things you just spoke about, which reminded me when I was in Italy on one of our trips with my wife, we wandered into this winery. We weren't booked to be there. We just went up a dirt road, one of these cool moments, and this old man came out and asked what we were doing there. And we were like, I don't know. We were looking for wine tasting. Oh, they don't open that up till later, but I could take you around. It was one of the, and he took it into his home and his kitchen, and from his kitchen there was these cellars and catacombs that opened up beneath, and it was really cool and all that. But one of the things he had said was back to what you had talked about, a lot of times alcohol and wine was just so you wouldn't have to drink the water.
Yeah.
And that's one level. But he was saying, when he was a kid, this guy was probably in his 90s, and this was probably 10 years ago. The wine was a couple things. One, it was to store food for the winter, because winter would come and there wasn't a lot of good things to eat to give you energy to go work all day.
100%.
So you could make wine during the summer and then store it through the winter, and they drank wine all day while they worked.
100%.
It's sugar and then the alcohol, I guess, gets your spirits up and keeps you maybe a little bit motivated.
Yeah.
And I thought that was interesting. I never heard that. Storing calories, basically.
Yeah, 100%. I mean, look, it all comes down to like preservation, right? Like how did we preserve foods? And I think, wine has been something from a preservative standpoint. It's also been used sacramentally. You know what I mean? So we use it, the communion is wine. Right. In ancient Greek times, and even later, wine was not just grapes. It was infused with herbs and sometimes psychedelics.
Ergot.
So ergot. Yeah.
Ergot. That's
ergot.
It,
Yeah. So
that's new. That's kind of new breakthrough stuff there.
Totally. They're finding these amphoras, which were the old vessels for wine storage, and they'll test the insides of the amphoras, and they're finding ergot and other chemicals. So it wasn't like or other natural pieces, and so they were used in varying different ways. And I think we use them now for various things, and I think that's a cool part of it.
Yeah, but that ergot part, and I gosh, where did I, on a podcast or something, heard a bit about this?
Yeah, it was a book. Guy came out, Brian Murescu was his name, and he wrote a book about the Eleusinian mysteries and how all the like the use of psychedelics in ancient times. And he's never even done psychedelics, so he's kind of taking it from a academic standpoint, but like bringing the spiritual side into it. And it's fascinating.
It's super fascinating. Yeah. And you're right. That's one of the ways we don't use wine nowadays. You don't see people sipping on wine and communing with the universe on a psychedelic trip.
Yeah, for sure.
Although I think that should probably make its way back in.
Yeah, it's probably making its way back. I used to work for a winery up in called B.R. Cohn. It was in Sonoma, and the owner's son's my best friend, but the owner was the manager of the Doobie Brothers. So he was started the band in the 70s, and then bought a little winery in the 80s, and it was like lots of dope smoking. And so they used to make a wine called Sonoma Coma, and they would put like whole sticks of marijuana inside the bottles, and it would be like a rudimentary infusion of like alcohol and THC.
Oh,
and so you kind of get a little like, it was pretty, the problem was you didn't know how strong it was. It was sometimes like edibles today. Right. You'd have a glass of wine and you'd just be like, fetal position, you know what I mean? But it was just, so that was kind of their vibes of like infusing it into stuff. So it tasted like shit, but I'm
surprised no one, with all the legalization of marijuana, no one's got a real stable THC wine on the market.
They do. Okay. They're just starting, but legally you cannot allow alcohol and THC to be sold together. So what they're starting to do is de-alcoholize the wine. So they make the wine.
Okay.
So it has all the flavors. They take the alcohol out, and then they infuse the THC in it.
Okay.
So it's not the same,
Right.
but it's like a vibe. You know what I mean? It's still hard. Like marijuana is like very green. It has a greenness to it. So it's
Right.
very hard to remove that. Like if you ever had like a pot cookie, you can like taste there's weed in it.
It's going to change the flavor of the
Yeah,
wine.
you know
big
what I
time.
mean? And so that's the tricky part with it. But everybody's trying to find a way to do it. Someday they'll be doing it together.
Yeah,
and
and
that's cool.
again, I hope they bring that.
We're
ergot.
supportive. You know,
Yeah,
ergot would be
yeah.
cool.
Yeah, let's-
Whatever, man. Any way you want to like take that ride, we're totally supportive.
I mean,
of that.
come on, you're not stopping anybody from doing this anyway. All anybody has to do is pour a glass of wine and light up a fucking doobie.
Yeah, right. Exactly. They may not be together, but they're close in proximity. Of one hand has got a wine glass and one's got the doob.
That's usually how I drink.
Yeah, absolutely. Certainly, if you're at my house, that's on the menu. So.
Well, that's cool, dude. This is kind of a sideways one, but it's just something everyone argues about, and I figured you might be able to settle this. This whole debate about European wine and the nitrates. That's why you have a hangover today. It's because what kind of wine did you have? Oh, you had some domestic wine. That's why you have a hangover. Period.
Yeah.
Is there truth to that, or is this bullshit, or what is that?
There's varying truths. It's like everything. There's like people got a little nugget of something and then they expanded it. So what they normally are talking about is that in Europe, they don't use sulfides. Sulfides, or don't use a lot of sulfides. And sulfides is sulfur. Okay. And sulfur is used as like a preservative. When they're making the wines, like because I told you those wines are alive, they'll use sulfides to stabilize the wine in the bottle so that it can kind of like keep evolving over time. And that's been done for 1,000 years. And people say, oh, the sulfides, you're adding something to it and it's making you have a headache. Well, there's 10 times more sulfides in a head of broccoli than there is in one glass of wine. There's 300% more sulfides in McDonald's French fries than there is in one glass of wine. So sulfides are in every apple juice. So they're in a lot of different things. So unless, if you got a hangover from eating McDonald's, that would be the sulfides. It's other things in wine. I mean, wine, especially red wines, there's a lot of histamines in them. Kind of what makes things good for you in wine, the resveratrol, the chemicals. There's also like some negatives, and histamines are what give you allergies. So red wines, it's pressings of the skins and the seeds, and in those there's histamines, and so that's why sometimes people get a hangover from red wines or from things more because there's more histamines, there's more allergens in them.
Okay.
Like you go to Japan, you ever see like a Japanese person, like when they drink alcohol, they get real red.
Right.
Because they don't have an enzyme inside their body that helps them process alcohol and the histamine. So they're getting an allergic reaction. So it can be that. Sometimes, dude, you go buy a bottle of wine from the grocery store and you buy it for $6. It's like a McDonald's hamburger. There's a lot of chemicals in that. And you go to Italy and you're drinking a $2 glass of wine from Giuseppe who's bringing you stuff. Dude, his wine's like all natural, but he's also, that wine won't live for a year or 2 years. That wine is made to be consumed a la minute, like now.
Table wine.
Table
This is what we
wine.
drink
Yeah.
daily.
This wine ain't making it for 5 years. It's being drunk tonight or for this season. And so there's a lot of, I've even noticed I'm more allergic to wine as I've gotten older. You become more sensitive to stuff, and so it's a bit of a ride. What I would generally tell people about that is first, alcohol is going to give you a hangover. So if you're going to drink good, go quality, not just because there's probably less bullshit in it, but also if you're going to be hungover, you better have got something good out of it. Second, also as wines get older, any additives or any sulfides start to fade. So like this bottle of wine I gave you is 2011. There's no sulfide. There's like no sulfur in this wine at all. And a lot of the histamines and a lot of the other ththings, as the wine has evolved, is starting to break down.
Okay.
So the older the wine, same with cheese. Like if you're lactose intolerant and you eat, fresh mozzarella, dude, your stomach's killing you. You eat like Parmigiano Reggiano that's 12 months or 18 months old, the lactose is almost completely broken down.
Wow.
So you can totally eat that stuff. So there's, like I said, we get a little like chunk of something and then all of a sudden it's like, that's why I'm hungover. Well, it's more complicated than that.
I figured there was more to that story.
Yeah.
Because I've been hungover on Italian wine, and I've been
Yeah.
hungover on, I'm like, I don't see a pattern here. I get basically I'm hungover if I drink too much. That's a pattern I see.
Yeah. Did you drink enough water? What did you eat? Did you
Right.
maybe you go to Italy and you eat a meal with wine? Dude, you had a big meal.
Oh yeah.
So you've got a little more to soak it up, a little bit more
Yeah.
to roll with it, so.
Well, that kind of leads into like this whole organic movement in the wine world. What's your take on that? I mean, we all are taught today, like if it says organic, that's what you should be doing if you care
Yeah.
about your body. So then I go to the wine store now and it's like, there's the organic wines. And I'm like,
Yeah.
man, I should probably be buying that. Should I, or does it matter? What is that?
It's probably like it's like everything I just said. There's sort of degrees of value. You know what I mean? It's like, does Tyson Foods that makes all this crap, they probably make something organic,
Right.
but they make 99% garbage. So I don't know. Is that one product they make? Is not? I don't know. The thing about wine that's a big deal, that's also a bigger deal, is that the vine stays in the ground, not like corn, right? Where you're like, you pick the corn, you plow the field, and you replant the corn and it grows back every year. The vine is there, and it's going to be there for 10, 20, 30, 40, 50 years. So you got to take care of the soil. You got to take care of the ecosystem. Not like you can just like rip it out and plant it back again. It
Right.
takes 3, 4, 5 years for it to come back. So really great wine producers, like for us, we're not organic, but we probably put more work into the feeding of the biosphere and the ecosystem of our vineyards than an organic producer. Because, dude, we're making the best wines in the world. We need these vines to be like, dude, we're spooning every vine. We're like giving it love. We're like, baby, you're the sexiest cluster I've ever seen. And then you go to the next cluster. Because that's the kind of love that we're about. And so, organic is important. Biodynamic, there's all these different terms. I think it's important to know like who's the source. Like if you're sticking with a smaller family producer, the chances of them like their whole life is invested in that vineyard, dude, they're going to give that vineyard love.
Yeah.
If you're buying a wine that's from a producer that's making 20 million cases of wine, it's just by nature, there's going to be a lot more of that refinery feel, and they're going to be cutting corners, doing additives and doing things. And that's the same with food. Dude, you go to the taco shop, the taqueria, they got a little, they're making the beans fresh every day. They're carving their stuff. Or you go to Taco Bell.
Right.
Like you're just going to be, dude, they're just like using like Frankenstein meat, and that's just the nature of our business, of life. And I think that, kind of stay local is really important, and stay micro is really important, I think, from anything. It's like know who's making it, why they're making it, what their motivations are. And those are like good things to kind of keep you on track.
And probably in that I heard stay boutique.
Yeah.
I mean, right?
Stay boutique. Yeah.
Because you're right. As soon as people get big, and this isn't, maybe not everybody, but when you get people that are making 20,000 cases of wine, there's going to be more chances for there to be little bullshit happening. Whereas when you get a boutique guy where that's the family business, like you said, I mean, they have to care and nurture for those plants.
Yeah.
It's their livelihood depends on.
Jason, all he makes is wine. He doesn't have another job. So if something happens to those vines, or we don't treat them with the respect and the love, they don't produce, and we don't make money. We don't feed our families. And so that's a really important part of wine specifically. And wine is always, there's a million wineries in the world, and most of them are like small family. If you take them, go to Italy, go to France. I mean, there's just like anything. There's big companies and they're buying stuff up and mass producing. But dude, you can go, to Temecula, you can go up to Paso Robles, Santa Maria, all the way up. And there's just small producers out there just like banging it out in their garage,
Right.
you know, and I generally try to go there,
That's
more so.
makes sense on any art, that boutique is always, you're always going to get such like that this knife I showed you today.
Yeah, dude.
Yeah, my buddy
that
made
thing
me.
is savage.
But I mean, this is a boutique knife maker, and I guarantee you couldn't find a mass producer knife brand that'll make one this nice.
Yeah, no doubt.
You got to stay boutique if you want the good stuff. And also what I heard in there is maybe focus less on organic, less if you're worried about hangovers and how good or bad the wine you're drinking is for you, and a little more on just quality.
Yeah.
Screw the organic, screw Italy versus domestic. Just
Yeah.
find boutique wineries that are doing smaller batches that really give a shit about what they're producing.
Yeah, because there's $5 organic wines. They're not fabulous. They're organic, but like, what else happened? What else is going on? So, there's a whole part of that process. So, and that's what's exploration is cool, dude. And that's like where like your shop is down in, right at the edge of Little Italy. You walk down, there's like 2 little wine shops, and I tell you, you go in there and you ask whoever's selling that wine, they're going to be knowing what's going on. Their business is to like, oh, dude, I met this producer. We tasted the wines. They showed me this and that. And they're going to help you kind of Sherpa your way as your wife's helping you Sherpa through finding something that's connectable.
Yeah.
You know?
Very true. Very cool. You know, one of the things when we were at dinner with Dave, something I learned about you is, you know, your interest in art, your interest in fusing artists with your wine brands. Maybe talk to us a little bit about that. I mean, this project you're doing with Dave is pretty sweet, but I know that you do this in other ways. So what's that all about?
You know, my mother's an artist, you know, and my mother's an artist, my father's an engineer, and they were like the typical left brain, right brain. Like my dad was all analytics. My mother was all emotion. No, you know, she couldn't balance her checkbook. And so I kind of grew up with in a place where like even our home was like another art venue for her. We didn't have one Christmas tree. We had 3. She was doing one was traditional, one was this, and the other was thematic or the future. And so I grew up around people that with her that she's a nonlinear thinker. Although I'm not great at art, I really loved being around it. And I had a tremendous amount of love and connectivity. And that's kind of what drew me to wine was that there's the really best producers are artists. They're using the grape as their canvas. And they're also like batshit crazy, like a lot of artists. And I appreciated that. I got to understand and be a part of the artistry that they were doing, but also help them sort of facilitate their dreams, you know, and their visions. You know, we talked a little bit earlier. It's like Jason's a great example. He doesn't care about making money. He doesn't care about anything but making the very, very best wine in the world. He'll spend himself into the poorhouse to make one thing perfect. And a lot of what I try to do is kind of like create safe spaces for him to be as creative as humanly possible, push the envelope in everything that he does. But I'm like making sure the bills are getting paid. I'm making sure that also people are, I tell his story. I'm out there like proselytizing. I'm out there telling, you know, grabbing the soapbox. I'm leave for Japan on Saturday. And for that week, I'll be talking to 150, 200 people about his wines and telling his story. And I think for me, art, it was a way for me to participate in art like actively without being the person that was like had the paintbrush. And my whole journey in wine has been about working with creative people and helping them sort of like channel and focus their vision, right? And create a space for them to make their very best work. That's tough, man. It's tough to do, but it's so gratifying. I've just like found the perfect job for me.
That's cool, man. And I can really appreciate that there's, I don't know, I guess I never really thought of it that way, that there is a role for someone like that in the world to kind of shepherd artists, because artists, what good is, I don't know, I shouldn't say it this way, but what good is a fabulous artist just off in some log cabin somewhere making the most beautiful art in the world that no one ever gets to see, that the world doesn't get to enjoy, right? So there, like it or not, there's economics involved. And artists don't create a lot of art when they don't have food and when they can't pay their rent. They're a little too stressed out. Artists do their best when they have a little bit of money and they have a little bit of success. And so that's really cool that you...
Or even pricing your work.
Right.
So for example, like you may have spent, I showed you a painting that you know I have in my house. That took that person 10 months to do it. He was selling it for $1,500. You know what I mean? Like, because he doesn't know how to price it. And also your time versus your value. You may have a piece that was a banger you did that was 5 hours and it's worth 50 grand. I don't know. So even that is hard for them to quantify the value. To them, it's priceless. Every piece that they produce is priceless. And so what the challenge I think for me is I'm trying to create a space for Jason to be fully artistic without saying like, hey man, if you did this, we'd make more money. Like, as you said, when you see like a CEO, it's like, my job is not to just make the most money. You know, that's the CEO of big companies.
Yeah, some of them are like that.
Yeah, no, many of them are.
But I think that's what sets you apart. That's why I brought it up.
Yeah. It's to try to create a space for him to like, and normally with me, it's like I'm like herding. Like, you know, you're like, I'm not pushing him. I'm like on a horse and you're like pushing a cattle. If you want them to go left, you kind of start edging right and you sort of slowly start riding your horse and then they kind of veer, but they don't feel like driven.
Right.
You know, with Jason, if you push him, he puts his heels down and now you're done. It's like he's doing it purely like, we ain't moving, brother. Like you pushed me and I'm out of my comfort zone. And so it's a very delicate dance, and it's been 12 years of dancing. So
it's 12 years.
Yeah, I've been 12 years. I've been in the wine business my whole life, my whole career, 21 years. I'm 44 now, and so I've been with him for half of that. So he's my longest relationship, and my wife now will be longer, baby, I promise. But I'm seeing you, babe. But yeah, it's been part of that journey.
I didn't realize it'd been that long. That's cool.
Yeah, and I got into wine when I was 21. No one was drinking wine. My friends, we were drinking cheap beer and like hard booze and volume. Volume was the game. It wasn't like, oh, are you smelling raspberries? No, I'm smelling like Mickey's malt liquor, green bottle, that was a big part of it. So
that's cool. Yeah, that's a long journey, your whole life in wine, man. You're not a sommelier?
Yeah, I'm a sommelier.
Oh,
that's how I got started.
Okay.
Yeah. So I started as a sommelier. My story is this is a cool story for people. Like, even if you don't like wine, you would appreciate this. I grew up in we didn't drink wine. My mom's from Fort Wayne, Indiana. My dad grew up in Hawthorne, but his family's, my grandma and grandpa were from Cleveland. So they were like Midwest people. We ate a lot of meatloaf and a lot of tuna casserole, and there was actually a lot of drinking in our house at all. If it was like Budweiser or like a box wine for grandma. So I didn't grow up around fine food and fine wine. And I was dating a girl in my early and sort of like in college, and I was working for a travel company, and she and I started dating, and she lived in Las Vegas. So one summer of my junior to senior summer, I moved to Vegas for the summer to be with her. And I ended up getting a job kind of through the help of her father at Spago. And basically was able to start, but this was like a fancy restaurant, and they're like talking about frisee and braising and duck confit. I didn't know any of these words. And that night I basically had to learn how, dude, what's duck breast? I didn't even know what that was. And so I'm like, they're going to fire me if I don't learn about this and kind of bullshit my way through it. I was always a good salesman. And then I've kind of found wine through that, and I decided to study to become a sommelier. And I was going to be a lawyer, actually. And I took my senior year off after college. I went to France for 6 weeks, ended up staying for 14 months, working at wineries in France and Italy, and decided to make wine my life and my career. So started in the sommelier space. Italian wine is my specialty. Okay. And then, I don't know, I started seeing there was a guy, Paolo, at a winery I worked at in Tuscany called Castello Mileto. And man, he's out there with a horse and his son and a plow, and they're doing it old school. And there was something even if his wine's no good, do you know how much work it is to make bad wine? Dude, I just breaking his back. And there was some connectivity there that I was like, man, I'm like I said, I would like to be an artist. Well, I'm creating wine. Creating this, that was my first, I'm like, ooh, I can do this. I could see my life's vision being that.
Well, you must have had the talent too. I mean, I don't say it right, sommelier.
Yeah, sommelier.
Sommelier is how I say it.
Yeah.
I don't quite understand how people do that. I've seen how you could probably do it. You could put these random glasses of wine and they can just taste it and most accurately, maybe not perfect, but tell you what region it's most likely from, what year it's what grape it is. That is
if you want to be
incredible. That's like a natural talent. You must have been born with a very sensitive, naturally hereditary, DNA-wise, a sensitive palate.
I'm going to flip the script. I think there are people that are very good at it naturally, like artists. Some people can be trained to be better artists. Others are just purely born with just raw natural ability. When you drink wine, right, you're normally thinking I like it, I don't like it.
That's what
or I like this, or I don't like that. You're kind of keeping it at the one or two parts, surface level. When you're analyzing wine, to be a sommelier, they'll put 6 glasses in front of you. So whites and reds, you don't know where they're from. And you have to say, what's the grape? What's the country? What's the city, the region? What's the year? And get that at a high level of accuracy. And many of them, you have to get it right.
That's incredible.
And the way you do it is really simple, Aaron. You taste 10,000 wines. That's number one. But you do it actively.
Yeah,
you're drinking and thinking.
Mm-hmm.
How I used to first start when I was working at Spago was the sommelier we would go into the kitchen and we would start tasting things raw. Like, have you ever just had arugula with no dressing on it? Have you ever just had a raspberry or a microgreen or a dish that's totally where you're tasting it and you're cataloging it? Okay, this is a pomegranate. This is saffron. This is clove. This is this. And you're starting to like build this catalog. And then when you start to smell it and something like, dude, bink, you're trying to like re-catalog your brain. And so it's an active process. Like, I'll never be one of the top sommeliers in the world in wine tasting, but I can do the magic trick. Like, I've gone to many dinners, and we do this as people in the wine business. We'll have the sommelier bring wines in the brown bag. And I've nailed the wine, the vintage, and the producer before completely blind in a dark restaurant. You know what I mean? Crazy. And but I'm also wrong like 9,000 times. So for the one that I like nailed it, I'm like, I'm the king. But the 9,000 that I was wrong, yeah, it's part of the journey.
We don't need to talk about those.
You know, everyone's wrong. You know, you just got to be right once and look like a G in the right position.
Yeah,
you know, that's it. So,
well, no, I think it's really cool and fascinating, and I know that people can do it. I can't, but it makes sense because
I could teach you. I
already tuned into what I need to start doing. Like, because when I'm drinking, I'm not. I'm doing the opposite of thinking.
Yeah.
I'm just drinking and then carrying on with my conversation. You have to really put your brain and your time and your thoughts around each sip and think about it. Really think about it. And you're right, tasting ingredients. I actually kind of do that. It's funny. My wife's an incredible chef. And, you know, knowing just nibbling a piece of a clove raw, you have to know what you're building something out of.
Yeah.
You know, and I think when you guys taste wine, you have to know all these different herbs because you have to pick them up inside the wine.
I will also tell you something, and this is the hardest part about being really good at tasting wine, is you have to spit it out. And that's like, we don't consume it. You have to just drink it and spit it. Because once you get about an ounce of alcohol in your system, your taste buds start to deaden.
Okay.
And so that's the part that nobody wants to do. Like, we'll go to a tasting, you know, we're talking about Jason with 100 Acre. It was like, we'll taste 100 glasses of wine in 2 hours or 3 hours. And to keep fresh, you've got to like spit it out. Right. And so, but once, say I was to put 10 wines in front of you and you spit and we did it together, dude, you can bullshit your way through the next taste. I could get you to at least like bullshit artist level pretty quickly.
I'm going to hold you to that. I want to get, that's kind of what I was getting to. I want you to get me to bullshit wine expert level.
I can get you to at least bullshit artist in a very short, just 3 videos. It's $99.99. You can watch my YouTube. No, I'm just joking. I don't have any of that. So
that's cool, man. All right. Well, you know, I want to talk about tattoos here in a minute. You're heavily tattooed. We're going to tattoo today.
Yeah.
But I noticed like you're kind of a spiritual dude. You tell me a little bit about that. I am too. I don't know. Spiritual dude's the wrong word. I'm a seeker. I love reading philosophy. I love reading books, texts on spirituality. I follow a lot of Eastern philosophy, Buddhism and Taoism. I had some books that given to me when I was a young boy, and that was like really clicked for me. And that, of course, people have heard me talk about my journey on the show many times. Led me down 100 pathways to where I am today. Still seeking. Still learning. Yeah. What's your story with spirituality?
Yeah, man, it's it's a wonderful and magical ride, you know, spirituality. I mean, mine started with, I kind of came from a really wild upbringing. I had a lot of I told you my mother was an artist. She had a lot of mental illness that we dealt with in the house. There was a lot of, you know, issues, a lot of drama in my family life. I actually went to 9 different schools from kindergarten to senior year of high school. So I was kind of moving around a lot. I was always the new kid. And there was a lot of, and I actually had moved out when I was 16 years old, lived on my own while I was in the junior in high school. And so I had a lot of drama, a lot of trauma as a young kid, but I was, you know, there's sort of 2 ways you can deal with trauma early. You can either be like, I'm a victim, I got fucked over, and this is why I treat myself this way. I treat myself poorly, or none of that's bothering me, man. I'm good. I'm independent. I'll make it on my own. And I was definitely one of those like, oh, that's not bothering me. I'm fine. Like all that pain, I just stuff that sucker down even further. Yep. And in my life, as I got older, in my 20s and 30s, a lot of that trauma and a lot of that pain that was stuffed down, it just like started to bubble up uncontrollably. And I started to like, dude, all of a sudden that like that cauldron was starting to boil over, and I wasn't in control of it the way that I wanted to be. And I started to get into therapy. And a lot of those like coping techniques from trauma as a kid, that I turned them into positive things. And I'd also convince myself that they were okay. Like feeling this way was okay. Not loving myself, not feeling worthy of love. No one loved me, so no one's going to love me. You know,
and I'm fine with that.
I'm fine with that. And I don't fucking need them, man. You know, I'm going to, you know, date the hottest women, make the most money. I'm just going to be rich and lonely or whatever. I don't need anybody. You know, I sort of, you're like the way I describe it is you build like a castle and you're in the castle, and then you build a moat, and then you build a drawbridge, and then you build the things, and then you lose the key and you're like safe, but alone in that emotional castle.
Good analogy.
And I started going through therapy, and a lot of the therapists that I started to deal with were helping me like bring up all this stuff that was really hard to deal with and sort of analyzing it. And what I realized about therapy, though, although I highly recommend therapy, it kind of helped me like open up the stuff, look at it, and then I like repack it in a nicer package and then still put it back in the garage. I didn't like get rid of it. And until I started going through some really, really tough parts, sort of existential stuff in my life in my late 30s, spirituality started to, I met a teacher that was a PhD in therapy, but he also worked with the Dalai Lama. He was a Western or Eastern spiritualist. He's a Gnostic teacher. And he basically said, therapy will help you pull the items out of the closet. Spirituality will help you release it. And that was when I started reading Eckhart Tolle, Ram Dass, Ramana Maharshi, Alan Watts, Deepak Chopra's, Michael Singer's. And I started building a spiritual practice of meditating, breath work, reading, and journaling. And my therapist / spiritual teacher, he goes, so look, you work out, you go to the gym every day, right? Spend an hour of the day, take care of your body. Like, how much time are you spending on your mind? How much time are you spending on your spirit? You expect it to get stronger, but you're not nurturing it. So I started not working out for an hour and 15 minutes a day. I started working out for 45 minutes a day, and then giving myself 30 minutes of spiritual time that was not an option. This is not optional time. And I started to feed that. And that journey took me, it healed me, man. And it's healed a lot of things, and it led me to plant medicines. I know you've talked about your experiences in those places with ayahuasca and different things. And as ways, my whole goal is not to analyze my issues; it's to face them and to release them. And now I'm about to be a father for the first time, and I made a commitment to myself that I wasn't going to serve that trauma to my child. And so I've got to do a lot of work and be committed to that, to release that, so that I'm bringing joy and positivity to my wife and my future child. But I will say, there's no, like, everybody wants to do like DMT or ayahuasca or take a pill and have it work. That's a part of it, potentially. But it's really what you do every day consciously that is going to open your awareness and spirituality. And it's helped me be better at my job. Working with artists, I'm like, dude, I'm in a more like, I'm not so married to everything. I can, like, as they're wigging out or going through something, I just can kind of like, dude, you're doing that. That's your thing. It's not my thing. It's happening around me, but it's not happening to me. And that's been a massive change in not just how I feel about myself, my relationships with people, but my career is not just better, but richer. I love what I do on a cellular level because I have a spiritual outlook to it.
That's beautiful, man. That's beautiful. And, you know, hearing you say that and watching you say that and feeling you in this room right now, you've done the work. I mean, no one's done, finished.
Dude,
I mean,
totally.
We all know
there's
that,
no done. Unless until you're on the carpet, samadhi, nirvana, and you're going around the room. But even those guys aren't done.
But everything you said clicked with me 100%. You're totally right. Ayahuasca, DMT, meditation, reading books, all these things can help you look at the stuff and start to release it. But releasing to me is like, I call it embodiment, right? Reading a philosophy is one thing. You understand it. It makes sense to you. You get it. But then it's putting it into day-to-day practice. And there's tons of techniques to do that. A lot of it's just awareness. Just calming down and catching yourself. Like, what am I doing right now? I'm driving in my car and I'm starting to feel anxiety over a thing I have to do in 30 days.
Yeah.
That thing's happening in 30 days regardless. I can't do anything about it right now. Yes, I need to make notes. Yes, I need to do some research. I can't do any of those things in my car right now. Done. No more thought towards the thing in 30 days. Back to where I'm at. I'm in a car. Look at the view out my window, whatever. Bringing yourself constantly back to that present moment.
Awareness and presence is the first stop. Like that's like in the Matrix, when you take the pill,
right.
That first thing is like the awareness.
Mm-hmm.
There is a matrix. There is this. I'm not what I thought I was. I'm not, a cog in a giant machine. Mm-hmm. In one regard, you're realizing I'm in control of nothing. And by being in control of nothing, I'm in control of everything.
Yeah, that's cool.
You know what I mean? And, and like like I said, a lot of people you've read, meditation, breath work, awareness, it's all about like, dude, I'm experiencing, like it's all flowing around me. And, that's how I'm going to be able to interact with the world more and more. I mean, when people used to hurt me, I realized I cannot be traumatized anymore. Because my trauma, when someone does something screwed up to me, it's actually my reaction to it that creates the trauma. It's not what they did to me.
Yep.
If I go, you hurt me, you screwed me over, you don't love me, you don't this, you don't that, that's the trauma. That's the karma. Yep. Karma is not what happens to you or what you do. It's your reaction to those things.
It's the meaning you assign to the events that occur in your life. Events are meaningless.
Yeah.
That we had Don Miguel Ruiz's son, Miguel Ruiz Jr.
Gotta be, dude,
on the show.
Oh yeah, that was a great episode. I love that.
He nails this, and I think his books in that Toltec philosophy really brought this one home to me the most. Is events are meaningless. They really are. I mean, it's like watching a branch fall out of a tree. It means nothing. Now, you could see that branch fall out of that tree and decide it was a bad thing or a good thing. If someone doesn't like you or tells you to screw off or does something to you, you can assign all kinds of meaning to that, or you can assign nothing to it. It's your decision as to what that is going to mean. And that is the trauma. If you assign to that event, I fucked up, I chose the wrong partner in life, or I deserve it because I've done things in my past and now bad things happening to me. So I deserve the event, or the world's full of shitty people and there's another one that's proof that I'm right, that there are tons of shitty people because I can prove it to you. See that guy? He just stole $1,000 from me. Yeah. See, I told you, everyone's shitty. And then you assign these meanings. And then what do you attract around you? All that emotion you have attached to these meanings. Yeah. A simple one would be thinking that most people are shitty, which I don't think.
Yeah.
Because you hear that a lot with news. It's the idea is that most of the world's a bunch of creepy, shitty people. Yeah. And I'm always asking myself and others, like, who do you know personally? I know you can name somebody somewhere, everybody can, but in your day-to-day going around, meeting people at the grocery store, everywhere you go, how many often do you meet these horrible, evil people that the television tells us are all out there? Yeah. And the reality is, for me at least,
you'd think it'd be zombie land on State Street because there's only monsters in the world. You
and
know
just
what I mean?
Walk up to any stranger out there, and 99% of the time they're totally friendly. Yeah. If you said you had a flat tire, 9 out of 10 people will probably help you. Yeah. So it's a story you attach to an event that backs up an emotion you had from trauma when you were younger, on and on and on. Yeah. But I love the way you package that and how you worked through that, through all of the stuff you've read, all of your plant medicine stuff you've engaged with, and where you're at now. That's fucking cool, man.
Yeah, it's a cool thing. I will, recommend, some, I've just got some great books. One book I really love is Untethered Soul by Michael Singer.
I've heard of that one.
That book is a must do. Like, you've got some banging books. I've read a lot of the books that are over on your shelf there. That's a very easy read, but I'll just summarize it briefly. What it basically says is your intuition, your inner voice is wrong all the time. If you had a lawyer that gave you advice that 999 things they told you were wrong, but they were right once, you would fire them. Right. Your inner voice tells you things are going to happen all the time that you should be afraid of that never happen. Or something shitty happens and 2 years later you realize that saved your life. but your entire perception of it was completely, you choose your inner voice is telling you how to react to it and how to quantify it and judge it. And it's paralyzing you from actually being properly present.
I like
You
that.
know, I love you, boy. You got your Duncan Trussell.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. This is, I mean, if there's not a sexier couple on the planet than Duncan and Kim Jong-un, you know what I mean? Oh, that's sick.
Shout out, Duncan.
Yes, man.
I love you. I love this sweat. This is probably the most hilarious piece of clothing I've ever owned.
Oh, this is
Every time
brilliant.
I put it on, I love what people don't know what to do with it. Most people won't even talk about it because just like it blows their mind too much.
See, that's real art. I am totally emotionally paralyzed. I'm ecstatic and weirded out. And yes, like I'm feeling the feels. I mean, you know, obviously he's a psychonaut in a lot of ways.
What was cool, you knew who it was.
Oh, totally.
Not many people recognize the shirt when I wear it. And you walked right up. You're like, oh, Duncan Trussell, that's dope.
What I like about him is lives his spiritual path. You know what I mean? He's not just trying to get something with the magic bullet. He's reading, he's breathing, he's taking plant medicines, he's doing different things. And he talks about it with a lot of love. You know what I mean?
And humor.
Humor. Oh, humor is critical, dude.
Because sometimes the spiritual community can get a little too serious.
Oh, dude, that's the worst.
Yeah. I don't like that either. And that's what I loved about him. He's laughing his way through it, you know?
Do you know how they would be able to tell, one of the big ways that they would be able to tell the Dalai Lama? The next Lama?
I think I know what you're going to say. I'll let you say
So there were
it, though.
two things. The first was their laugh. So they had a very specific type of laugh that is an indicator. And then the second was they would give them objects that was what have you. But there's a documentary about joy with the Dalai Lama and Desmond Tutu.
I just watched it.
Yeah, and they both laugh. Like one laughs like a pixie, like a little girl, and the Dalai Lama's like, ha, 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 ha. Their laugh and they're laughing the entire darn thing.
Yeah.
And so our ability to laugh and create levity, it's like, dude, this is not that hard. Like, it's not, everything's not all heavy, especially when you're dealing with heavy shit. The laughter is what you need to kind of like put a little air in your lungs to be able to go to like to really absorb it properly, you know. And that's why it's so important. It's trippy right now with comedy and in podcasts that there's more people kind of like Duncan as you know, and kind of his school of fish, that people are talking about these things more, and comedy is like the way to like inject it, like without feeling like you're on your back heel, like somebody's like preaching. They can laugh, and then inject a little bit. Laugh, and then inject a little bit.
That's so true.
Yeah.
You go back, 20 years ago, there was no comedians on stage even approaching these subjects at all. And now it's coming out more and more. That's just probably a result of culture. Culture's changing. These spiritual subjects that we've discussed today are pretty prevalent. I don't know many people who aren't interested in the books we just talked about and doing breath work and, hey, I want to check out yoga. Like people will sometimes think maybe perceive the world not changing. And I'm always like, I think it's changed a lot.
Oh my God.
Just 20 years ago, who the hell was going to yoga? Who the hell was doing breath work? Who the hell was meditating?
Well, and I mean, now you can get, I mean, you know, I'll be talking, you'll tell me about a book. I go to the restroom. I'm like, while I'm in the bathroom, I've bought it on Amazon and it's at my house tomorrow. Sometimes that day, you know, or a YouTube or a little clip. I mean, you know, on my Instagram, it used to be a lot more like food stuff, you know, because I travel and work with food. And now it's become a lot more about just philosophy and about spirituality. So I'm like, not because I'm preaching, it's because, dude, I saw this and this meant something to me. Like, hey, I'll share it. A little nugget, if only shares with one person, cool. That's gold. Even if it didn't help anybody, it helped me. So it's like what it's about.
The access is incredible,
dude,
now.
for
it's
real.
Just like instantaneous, and everyone get on it, man. It's free. You don't have to hike up a mountain and meet a guru in a cave. You know? You just have to have an iPhone.
Yeah, and that guru may have like an Instagram now to be able to get you to get there.
He probably does.
You know what I mean, right?
Does.
Or some way to help you MapQuest there where you'd never be able to get before.
So
I don't know. MapQuest. That's letting you know how old I am. You don't MapQuest anymore. You know, now you just have your navigation in your phone or Waze. I mean, you know, so you used to print it out 8-10 pages of how to get to somewhere. We thought that was very modern, and now you'll never get lost. You know, unless there's like a blackout or something like that. And then
I don't know how we did it before. I've rented a car in Europe.
Dude, Thomas Guides. Thomas Guides.
That's right.
That was it,
yeah,
man.
And you needed hopefully you had a passenger that could, be there, wingman in it. You know?
You had to have a co-pilot.
Yeah.
And you're like, dude, turn right here. It's like, the street's not even on the map. Like that would happen. I lived in Europe in my early career, and that was like, I used to drive a little Fiat Punto, which is like a
classic.
Fiat. It's like the smallest little like hatchback, 3-cylinder, like, car. And, you'd be constantly missing turns, and you just kind of just pull over and be like, time to drink. Like, we're good. Coffee or drink. We're not making it today.
Kind of led to some happy accidents.
Happy accidents, 100%. 100%.
Maybe we should bring that back, actually. I wouldn't mind getting lost a little more often.
Yeah, dude.
Not getting everywhere on time as scheduled.
Yeah. Well, as I was like driving here, I'm like looking at my navigation. Okay, I'm going to be right on time. I'm going to have time to be able to do this. It's like 7 minutes. It's like you kind of like you're training yourself, not always for the best.
Yeah, a little too much organization, a little too much predictability in life with our phones nowadays, but pluses and minuses,
Yeah, 100%.
So, tattoos.
Yeah, man.
You got some pretty cool tattoos.
What
was your first, before we get into what you got, what was your first? What was the first, like, when did you break the seal?
Tattooing for me was, I did everything wrong. In every, but also like we talked about perception, but it ended up being the right thing for me.
Right.
I had when I was living on my own when I was 16, and I had sort of like basically broken out of all this madness. My first tattoo was basically like telling the world like I'm a man. Like you cannot tell me what to do. I got a tattoo when I was 16. Got a big sun. Like this octopus kraken right here is a massive cover up.
Okay.
And there's a little bit of a journey there. Jeff Norton shouts to you for doing this beautiful work. He's a G. And I got my first tattoo. It was a sun with a face on the inside of it. Came to high school junior year that day and was like, dude, I'm fucking tough.
Oh yeah, you were.
I'm tough.
That in those days to have a tattoo at 16,
dude, I was tough.
I had one friend that did that too, and he was a god at our school.
Yeah, and
nobody fucked with that guy.
I was like making sure all my shirts were just short enough to make sure I got as like much tattoo going as possible. And it wasn't bad work, but it was nothing amazing. Then I went back and got another tattoo and got a big old like jester that like looked like the graphics clown. It was kind of dark, and I was like, I wanted it to be jovial, but it was like kind of a dark jester. Now this one is a big Geishan dragon. That's a cover up, and so I ended up sending. I was left. I spent like a couple $100 on tattoos, got cover ups on them that looked like shit, then spent $5,000 to $10,000 for lasering. And now I've got, Jeff Norton's work. I've got Matt Tischler's work. I got Luke Morris's work.
Oh, Matt Tischler did?
Yeah, Matt did this. What's great about Matt is
he's a good friend of mine.
His work. So this is pretty early for him.
Right.
His work in the last 5 years.
He's phenomenal.
Holy shit. Like I remember when I was sitting with him and we were talking about people that Justin Hartman, who was a big inspiration for him, Jeff Norton, a couple different people that did a lot of figure work. Yeah. And he was like, man, these people are really inspired. I'm like, dude, you're inspiring them now.
Oh,
he's doing banger pieces, big back work. I mean, his wait list is, really, really long. And, but what I realized early on was after I had all these bad tattoo not bad tattoo experiences, just bad tattoos and lasering and all that. I was like, okay, well, they've got a 1.5 year wait. Cool. I'll wait. Yeah, and and then I was the guy who was like sending him a DM like, hey, if you're going to do a show, sometimes actually when they're doing shows, conventions, they have you have a better chance of getting in at a show.
Good way to cut the list.
I'll be there, dude, or I'll be your cancellation. Yep. And that's a lot of the ways I was able to jump on the list. And so I started getting my arms done. I have a big Sacred Heart chest tattoo. I've got two big pieces on my ribs that are half done that I haven't worked on in 10 years because they hurt too much. I mean, I became more of a wimp at it. When I was in my 20s, I'm like, blast me, 5-6 an hour. Then I'm like, hour and a half. I'm like, I'm getting sweaty. I'm not feeling as tough. So, but I think the experience of it has been really great. But I've really enjoyed getting to know the artist. I mean, it is an intimate thing. It's like, as we're going to get some tattooing, this podcast is sort of like, you normally are sitting with somebody for like 4 hours, 8 hours, 10 hours, 12 hours. After the first hour or two of like, how was your day? And what do you like, football, baseball? You start like talking about shit.
Yep.
And you're inflicting pain on people.
Yep.
And that pain makes them more vulnerable.
Yep.
And they're more willing to talk about certain things. And I think kind of your podcast is sort of like you're giving a little bit of an extra, like you're getting deeper before you've started to tattoo the person. Now you get to know me a little bit. Now we're kind of going on this journey. You won't just be thinking, oh, this is a beautiful piece of work I put on somebody. But like, dude, we talked about Ramdas and spirituality and timelines and wine and culture, and it'll have a more special, hopefully a more special connectivity for you. When you look at that piece, you won't be thinking, oh yeah, that was a great thing I did on somebody's leg.
Oh, 100%. Because, now I'll do this tattoo today, and every time you look at it, of course, you'll remember the tattoo experience, but you'll remember being on the show and what we did here. And it really adds another cool layer to the tattoo experience, which is our story, because I've never tattooed you before. But then I have the flip of it too, where I've got people on the show who I have already done a bodysuit.
Yeah, for sure.
And then we get to show the world this deep, deep bond friendship that was created over 5 years of tattooing together, which is what you were speaking to earlier, the vulnerability, the time alone, just talking. I've said it before, but I ask people all the time that I tattoo large projects on, when's the last time you sat with your wife without a phone, without a television, and just talked to her for 75 hours? It's like, no, I don't know if we don't do that. We talk to our wives and our loved ones in passing, but how often do you just sit down straight across the table and talk?
Yeah.
I mean, we do it, but not, and that's a special bond that happens in tattooing that's kind of unique and rare. Yeah. And we co-create. That's the other thing about tattooing that's rad is, I drew your piece, but you gave me the reference and you decided where it would go. And we work together, and that's what's great about tattooing too. And there are artists out there that are just, that's what I'm doing, you get it. But I like to co-create with my clients.
It's a range. I mean, I would say with the this is like not giving your like tattoo advice to people, but like your tattoo artists are people. They're in varying places in their careers. Some of them are like have art they want to express. So like, hey, this is what I'm doing, and I'm going to do this. Others want to have that connectivity. Others want to have you have a lot of input, and find the artist that's in whatever place that they're at. Also, you have to be there is a part of surrender though. I think is really important with getting a tattoo. Don't come in and like tell them everything that you want exactly, because you're losing. To me, this is my experience. Like when the more space I give the artist, the more like experience I get from it. Yep. You know what I mean? It can go the other way sometimes, but
the key there is that the artist is talented and knows what he's doing. It'd be like wine. If you told somebody to do anything they wanted with a pile of grapes and they didn't know how to make great wine, you're going to end up with a bucket of shit. Yeah. But if you tell a guy that understands how to make wine and just kind of give him certain ingredients and say, see what kind of wine you can make, you're going to get something unique and beautiful. Yeah. So the same with tattooing. Yes, in the end, a little surrender with a good tattooer and somebody who you already like their style. It isn't hard to figure out a basic style of a guy's art or girl's art. Look at their work. If they're doing stuff that turns you on, then give them some leeway. Let them flow. Because if you don't, you're limiting a huge asset to the project. Because they've got something to bring to the table, and if you stop them from bringing it, now instead of two people coming together with great ideas and making 1 + 1 = 3. Yeah. Right. You end up with only one half of that equation.
Well, it's been a blessing for tattooing, at least from, certainly popularity, exposure, and quality of work. But like when I first went into tattoo studios, the only way, if somebody was famous, they were in a magazine, but they only had like a spread. But very few people were in those magazines, really, when you take all the tattooers. You'd go in, maybe they'd have some flash on the wall. Normally they had like a book that had photos. And he would like flip through like a photo album of their work. And then you'd kind of have to decide like, this is good. And then you'd tell them something, they start sketching, and you didn't know what you were going to get. Yeah. Now, if you're like surprised, like very rarely if someone is like a fine line artist or a photorealistic artist or a traditional artist, they're giving you something totally different. Right. Like they're going to give you, this is what their jam is. And, there's work within that.
It's so much easier. I still have a lot of compassion and empathy for people who have gotten some kind of shitty tattoos and had shitty tattoo experiences. But as I get older, I get a little less empathetic and compassionate because it's just not hard to get a good tattoo anymore.
Oh no, it's definitely, and there's more like artists.
There's so many more
real fine artists.
And you don't have to drive around town and look through those picture portfolios. Open your phone up, start following tattooers, find the guys or girls that are doing stuff that really turns you on, write them, meet with them. If you follow these simple steps, wait on their waiting list, pay whatever it is they charge. If you do these things, it's pretty hard to get a tattoo you're not stoked on.
Well, like Dave Koenig, you're bringing him up, and he and I working on some projects together. I mean, I was a fanboy of his work, dude. I was like digging into everything and that he was doing, and like every time he would post a video, and I would see his work, and I was just like, wow, like I've never seen anything like this before, And then when he did his the card collection, he did the 10-in-1 or whatever it's called during COVID. I was like, bro, you're like doing art, you're putting it on a physical piece, you're creating backstories about what these pieces are. I'm like, that's you're creating like a scape, like a picture scape. You're not just giving me like a back piece or a print. He's like building a carnival of freaks, and they're beautiful and terrifying and dark and light. And then you start to talk to him about it. I was like, dude, I got to work with you. Yeah. Like I just find you so fascinating. And he's if you're willing to go out to Omaha, Nebraska, you just camp out on his front lawn in January, middle of winter. You'll show him how serious you are. And, he'll bring you from the snow, and maybe he'll bless you with a piece.
I'm sure he would.
Talking about a humble guy too, right?
Yeah.
Did it get more humble than Dave Koenig? Like as far as talent and humility? He's like at the max of both, which is a rare.
He is. It was an honor to have him on the show and get tattooed by him. I've been a huge super fan of his for years. Yeah, and I'll be excited to see this project you guys are doing. I know it's not completely formulated yet, but I know there's some art coming to some wine, and those two things are going to merge, and it's going to be multi-bottles telling a story, and I can't wait to see what you guys do. Yeah, I mean, I think with, one of the things we were talking about with, wine is art. It's a living thing. It changes every year, a vintage and this and that. And it's not new to have artists do labels for wine, but I felt that was like limiting. Because, I do a piece and then that's your piece. Why not have an artist that's like evolving and living with the brand? The vintages change, the wines change, the work changes, it evolves. You can see what's the next evolution of the piece for the artist. Also, from year 1 to year 5, like you're not the same person. Right.
So where are you at? Your art is starting to change. And so to kind of create a wine brand and potentially that would have, that could help you go on the ride with the artist as well.
It's cool.
Was really cool. And I think also too, with Dave, which was an important piece is, he's already an extremely established artist. He's got an unbelievable tattoo studio and following. But I think for him, he wanted to like start to do work that wasn't just like lived on one person.
Yeah. He
wanted to do work that could be transcendent, and people in France and Thailand and LA and San Diego, whatever, could experience it. And that's that. For me to work with him and to try to help facilitate that is what I'm doing, facilitating, helping. Yeah. Hey, how do I create a venue for you to continue to keep expanding your art and exposing it to new people and have an emotional connection with them? And I think that's the future for me. 100 Acre is what I do now. We have 100 Acre Wine. We have Fortunate Son. We have Summer Dreams. Jason is a mentor to me. He's like a father figure to me, and he's an artist. And I think that ability to continue to work with artists in various ways is like, dude, that's the air in my lungs every day.
Well, put my name on your list.
You are on the list. We talked, dude. Trust me. Because part of the idea was to be working with different artists at different times and start to create these things. And we had a list of people, and like you were right off the top of the list, Jeff Gogwe. I mean, we were having our who's our all-star list. You were top 5, dude. And we were like, but can we get these guys? And it was. It also depends, and gals as well. I mean, the female, the work that's coming out it was also just about getting also a real cross section of work. You don't want to just get person who does one type of thing. You want to be finding, and then finding ways to get them to expand. I mean, their work into a new medium.
I love it. Cool. I love it. And timing is everything. If you had hit me up on a project, and I know we're not doing anything yet, but if it comes to fruition, timing is good for me now. 10 years ago, I got offers to do so many things with art outside of tattooing, and I couldn't. Tattooing 6 days a week, drawing on my one day off. It was just barely keeping up, and I've slowed it all down. The show is part of my new world, breaking away from tattooing a little bit, not just tattooing every single day.
Well, and a lot of people want you to do something for them 10 years ago, and they're like, well, and maybe it'll make money. Or maybe it'll pay. Maybe I can take it. Maybe it'll be big. And you're like, dude, I'm got a family. You got beautiful kids and a wife. You're like, I'm doing work, but I also am building my empire. You know what I mean? And that's an interesting part of finding that proper balance, you know. And as I said, it's about timing. It's about, you know, shoot, you and I met on a whim. You were tired. I was like, you know, drove down just specifically to see Dave. And he's like, dude, I'm going to be in San Diego for 2 days. I'm like, okay, I'll fly out. Let's do dinner. And then he invites you, and then you start to like have some kindred spirit with somebody. And you never know. 10 years later, I'll be like, dude, remember that time we was born and raised, where we had dinner and drank a bottle of Burgundy and a bottle of 100 Acre, and we talked about food. And then, you know, 20 years later, you're like, you know, immersed in a project, and you're finding like some immense joy from it. That's like that's what we all hope to do, right? It's like find people that your tribe, and then do something that's just totally organic and passionate together.
Well, that dinner led to you here on the show, and we're about ready to go do a tattoo that never would have happened.
Yeah, man.
Especially since I think you had said to me earlier, there was a moment where you had said you were done. You're done getting tattooed.
Yeah.
And then, as you said earlier, you're a little more fluid now. You're like, well, if something comes my way, I'm more, you know, flexible. So this me and you met, and suddenly we're doing a pretty significant. It's not like we're doing a little thing. We're covering your whole back of one of your legs today.
Yeah, it's exciting. I mean, you're number one blessing me. I'm so excited to be able and honored to be able to have the work and to do something that's really meaningful to me. You know, as I was younger, I just wanted tattoos that looked cool. I mean, just like, and I've added stuff over time that was really meaningful to me. But the piece that you're doing, my wife's Cambodian, and shout out to you, Safia, my love, and my upcoming child. You know, she's from Cambodia, and her family escaped the Khmer Rouge genocide. There was 3 million people that were slaughtered and killed over a 5-6 year period of time. And they came to America with 8 of them with $10 in their pocket. And their strength and their struggle and their strife and what they've come through, and the beauty of the pain, but now the beauty of the people, and to get something that is honoring her culture, that's something that means a lot to her, is just like, wow, like super blessed.
That's cool.
Yeah.
That's cool. I'm glad I'm able to not only do a tattoo on you, but one that stands for all of that.
Yeah.
That makes it even deeper. And that's the shit I love. So,
yeah.
And just to clarify, that what kind of image is this again? Explain that to our viewers.
Yeah. So this piece is called an Apsara. It's Apsara. If you look at them, if you Google image, you'll see like these beautiful dancers with these elaborate headdresses, headpieces, and they're basically like, simply, it's like a Cambodian ballerina, ballet dancer. But what the Apsaras are in the culture are like the angels. They're like the angels that are coming down and bringing art and beauty in every single position that they put their body in is a message. Every piece is a meaning. And they're sort of the transmitters of the divine to the Cambodian people.
That's cool.
You know, one of the cool parts of my wife and I were able to have 2 weddings. One was a traditional Cambodian wedding with monks and 5 different outfit changes. And every single piece of outfit that you put on was a symbol of transformation and transcendence into your new life. And at our sort of American wedding, we had Apsaras, modern Apsara, was the name of this woman, Mia, who's a teacher, and she brought 2 of her students and she blessed us with this dance, and it was like really brought a deeper spiritual meaning to us. And so like they're the messengers of the divine. And that was the cool part of it. And I have to give you mad props as you were talking about the piece. You know, the first thing I do is show my wife, then she sends it to Mia. She's like, "Oh, dude, not bad for a white boy." You know what I mean? And they're very serious about this stuff, you know. And she was like, "Wow," because the headpiece is really elaborate.
I started doing my shit where I was like, I kind of get it, decorative, cool. And I was getting surreal, and then something clicked, and I'm like, no, this is a very traditional thing. Like, I can't just change it my way. And so I switched it all up. Anyway, I'm glad it passed the test.
Totally. And I was like super pumped. You know, the Cambodian mafia, we got 25 Cambodians in Long Beach, part of her family. They'll be looking, watching, judging. On. Yeah, no pressure. If I feel a little sweat drop as you're going, or like, you only have the weight of the entire Cambodian community on your shoulders. No, you got this.
Actually, the hard part's over. Design is the hard part. I mean,
for sure.
Execution. I've been tattooing 30 years. I just execute. As long as you like the design, everyone likes the design, I think it's all downhill from here. So
Yeah. Can I give a little shout out to the bottles that I brought you?
Please do. These were both gifts from Landon for me today. And tell us about it. What did you bring me?
Yeah, so these are not wines that we produce, but I wanted to bring you some wines that I thought were sort of like iconic and special, that really represented sort of the artistic spirit of wine. The first is, you told me you love Italian wine, and Italian wine is a passion for mine. This is a producer named Allegrini, and they're like a middle-sized producer. They're in Veneto, which is Venice, sort of like west of Venice area, and they're
That's where my family's from.
Yeah. Oh, cool. I didn't know that. Very cool. They're known for a type of wine called Amarone, and Amarone is a basically wine made from raisins. So they'll take these very, very great grapes and they'll put them out on these straw mats, and they will dry them. And as the water is evaporating, it's concentrating the flavor in the wine, and it makes this like really intense sort of opulent style wine. And there's 3 grapes in that, Corvina, Rondinella, and Molinara. And Corvina is considered like the very, very best, like it's the core, most important grape. And this Allegrini La Polla is a single varietal Corvina. And I don't know anybody that makes a single varietal Corvina. They normally blend. Okay. So this is something special. It's a 2011, so it's aged and ready to drink soon. Please drink soon. And then I'm bringing a bottle from my like all-time favorite, like somebody I'm like dorking out completely. His name's Paul Lotto. And this is a Malvasia or Malvasia Bianca. And Malvasia Bianca is a white grape from Italy. It's normally very, very floral. Lots of white flowers and notes. And it can be a little like oily in style. But this producer, Paul Lotto, this one's called Boogie Nights. He's growing Italian grapes in the Central Coast area, so like sort of like Santa Maria area. And this is a very sort of unique expression. Remember I told you could take a grape from a cool climate and then put it in a warmer climate, and it expresses completely differently. And this was my wine of the summer. Like I drank copious amounts of this wine. This is the perfect starter wine. And this is one of those producers when you talk about like supporting somebody who's small and local. This is the dude. He does Pinot, Chardonnay, Sauvignon Blanc, Rosé, funky white wines. He does a lot of Grenache, which I think is banging. And so yeah, we're bringing a little Italian vibe, Calatal, and some proper Italian.
I love it. This is really where the Della Vedova family are all from, the north of Venice region.
Cool.
So that's cool. I'll have to tell my dad about this one. He might know a bit about it. And summer's on the way. And I have a beautiful pool in the backyard, and we go through a lot of white wine. Although I'm going to save this one for the first drink of the night because I really want to experience it. I'm going to
definitely make sure like
I'm not going to spit it out.
Yeah, no, this is definitely non-spit situation, and definitely make sure the wifey. This is like your antipasta. Antipasta. It's like you've got it's got 3 or 4 dishes working, and like some cheese. Get a little cheese working, a little olive. Get some stuff happening. Awesome. Like this wine is unbeatable for like many dishes. It can go with a lot of different things.
All right,
which is super cool.
Thank you.
Oh, my pleasure, brother. It's my honor to share it with you.
Okay, everybody. So we're going to take a little break, and we're going to meet you on the other side of the room, and we're going to tattoo an angel from Cambodia.
Yes,
Apsara.
Apsara, man. Thank you, brother. Looking forward to it.
Man,
Cheers, man. Cheers. Let's go.
Welcome back. Landon, how was that, buddy?
That was like tantric. I like came out of a trance, and I'm like a new person now. I'm not
behind the knee there.
Oh yeah, the behind the knee. That was kind of the BDSM portion of the tantric portion. There's pleasure and also pain at a part. But yeah, it was great. It was fantastic. I mean, the outcome was fantastic. But it's also, I had sort of mentioned to you that I was like done with tattooing. I've done a lot of tattooing. I was done. And I just definitely sort of brought me back into sort of the mental space of it and really enjoying sort of that journey. And then that makes you appreciate the work too. I mean, a little bit of that sort of uncomfortableness with have you there.
There's a buzz. There's a buzz that comes
Yeah.
with when you get done getting tattooed for a couple
Yeah.
hours or 3 hours or 10 hours, whatever it is.
Yeah.
There's an endorphin-y kind of thing.
100%.
I forget about it too because I don't get tattooed as much as I used to. I got tattooed recently, and every time I do it, I'm like, I feel fucking good.
Yeah.
It's kind of like a drug, and they've proven this. It's endorphins that we don't release in our current culture because we're not out chasing lions and running from enemies from a nearby camp anymore. We live sedentary lives. Our adrenal glands rarely kick into action, and tattooing releases a lot of very healthy hormones that make you feel good.
Yeah, no, and I totally feel that. Like, I feel pretty darn serene right now. I'm kind of like gliding. I'm like the jellyfish in the ocean, just kind of flowing, which is a blessing,
This was fun when we were tattooing. You were like, when I come back, maybe we bring a couple wines. We do a little wine tasting.
Yeah,
so
for
I think
sure.
you've really opened me up to a lot of ideas and thoughts about wine that I didn't have prior to this. And I'm sure a lot of people feel the same way. So more of this to come, more tattooing, more talk of wine, and more creating together.
We have to get you to that the bullshittable level to be able to get by on wine, like blind wine tasting. Oh, dude, you're going like young Padawan on your way to Jedi of wine bullshitting. We're going to get you there, brother.
I can't wait to
sure.
bullshit my first group of wine snobs.
Oh, yes. Get that swirl right. Get the wrist going. It's not this. It's this.
Yeah,
okay.
I noticed that right away.
That's it.
See,
It's
I was
like,
doing this.
Yeah, this is like
amateur shit.
You don't beat it like this. You got to have a flow. Okay, you know what I mean. This is key here to get the energy flowing. We'll get you right, brother. We'll get you right.
Well, man, I want to say a toast to making a new friend. You're an amazing, funny dude. Showing me about wine. Let me do a beautiful tattoo, and more to come.
I feel so blessed. Thank you, brother. Appreciate it. Until next time.
Welcome back. I just finished this tattoo on Landon. It took us three sessions. That last one was just an easy little thing at the end, but that was fun, dude. I'm glad I got to do a significant piece on the show. Usually I'm ripping these little guys, and that was
I got the bonus round, brother. You were doing these little 1 hour jammers on people, and I get this like leg piece, beautiful masterpiece. Like, I definitely got lucky here. So thank you, brother. It was amazing.
It's a little contrived. I knew that I would end up drinking some beautiful wine with you, so I was like, I'm going to hook this guy up.
Dude, we're fine to bribe with wine, it's a good currency, for sure. But yeah, the sessions were amazing. One of the things I was saying to you was, I've obviously got a lot of tattoo work, and I've gotten tattooed from all kinds of people from all different walks of life, but I feel like you and I are similar age. We're business owners doing these different things, different parts of our lives. And so over these sessions, we've been able to talk and like connect. And I felt like that made the tattoo feel very special to me, not just the subject matter because of the tie-in with Cambodia and my wife, but also our connectivity. And so I just feel so blessed, dude. It's amazing.
I agree. I mean, I knew we'd have some stuff in common. I mean, Dave Koenig, who referred me to you, was like, you're going to love this dude. I love Dave and I trust him.
Yeah.
But dude, it's amazing. Like your experience with hallucinogenics and ayahuasca and we're like soul brothers.
Yeah.
That's what happened in this. Who knew that was going to happen?
I feel that way. That's the joy, dude. I mean, that's what wine's about. That's what art's about.
Yeah.
Hopefully the end game is to have something that's, drinking a glass of wine or seeing a piece of art is a moment, creating a connectivity beyond that or through that. is something more and for eternal, hopefully, you know. And so there's, I think, the really cool part of it. So it was awesome.
And that's why I drink too much. See,
That's it.
It's not about the alcohol. It's about what he just said.
Yeah, so we're not drinking, Aaron. We're learning. Okay, this is
I like
educational spaces, you know. I mean, there'll be times I'll drink. I was telling you, I'll try like 100 wines in a day, 120 wines in a day.
Wow.
At 9 a.m. you start, and you never eat beforehand. So you want to have your like glucose be low because you're hungry. Your sensitivity is higher as you start to get hungry.
Right.
So there's literally some like hacking, your biohacking there. But yeah, we spit all of that wine out. But today, no spitting.
Okay.
This is consuming situation here. But
as you said, it's proven that after a couple ounces of wine, your ability to really get down to those micro details really starts fading.
yeah.
If you drink that 2 ounces isn't shit.
That's nothing. That's a shot. That's like a little more than a shot of alcohol. Now you can still taste and enjoy, but like your ability to like blend wines to do like proper analysis it's done.
It's done. It's
Like
over.
no professionals. Actually, strike that. Jason, our owner, he does drink it. He's the only guy I know that drinks it. I mean, very tiny amounts, macro amounts, but he's a freak in any way. So the freak, it's no surprise. Like he's also breaking all the rules.
Right.
It's no surprise there. But
Well, and he's also winning. I mean, like I think you had told me 100 Acre Wine is the overarching brand of all the different wineries you guys command. And Jason is the owner, and he is a bit of a savant in the industry. One of the facts I think you told me that, winemakers struggle their whole career sometimes, quote these numbers if I'm wrong, but to get a wine that even scores on a 1 to 100 scale over 95 is, you get a couple of those in your career, and that's like a huge achievement.
Serious,
and Jason's gotten 40 of them.
yeah, we got 42 100-point scorers. That's more than like the next 2-3 guys combined.
Wow.
And, for a guy who's completely untested and uneducated, like he's self-taught, he didn't go to winemaking school. It is sort of that like eccentric, artistic, iconoclast. Like he's just a paradox, enigma in a lot of ways. So it's cool. It's never a dull moment working with him. You know, if you're going to do anything, like in the end, you want to work with the best.
Yeah.
He's a complex dude, but in the end, it's like I'm inspired to buy it every day. So we're not trying 100 Acre wines today, though.
Okay.
We've tried some stuff.
I have. By the way, that bottle you gave me, the Wraith, I think it was called.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
Wow. And I had a couple drinks before that. I probably shouldn't have done that. Damn it.
It's all right.
Still
It's strong enough to be able to get there.
That was good.
But yeah, we obviously I'm in the wine business, been doing that for now 23 years. And, we first met, had wine that night and tasted some really cool stuff. And you told me what you were into. And then I brought you some wines.
What I thought I was into.
Yeah. Then I brought you some wines last time, the Malvasia Bianca from Paul Lotto. Shout out to Paul, who's one of my idol in winemaking. I brought you a bottle of Corvina from Allegrini.
That's the stuff from the dried grapes, right?
Yeah, from the dried grapes from Italy.
Super
and
good.
Kind of zooming in. And so when we wanted to do the tasting with you, I thought it would be a little like too self-promotional to bring my wine. So I thought, you know what, I'm going to bring you some wines that are different, that are kind of unique, that your audience could acquire and kind of find and, kind of just take you through. We'll taste a few wines. I'll give you a couple tricks of the trade. And then when we zoom this out, we'll drink these bottles and we won't share with anybody. You know what I mean? As like proper scallywag pirates do, We'll go from the learning to the drinking.
I was hoping you'd say that.
Cool. Well, the first wine we're going to try is from France. So this is from Burgundy. The wine is called Remy Jobard.
Okay.
Now, in Burgundy, oftentimes you're going to see the same last name and different first names.
Okay.
So Henri Jobard, Remy Jobard, Louis Jobard, and they're family.
Okay.
They're cousins, they're brothers. And the way it worked in Burgundy is when your father passed away and he passed down his inheritance, each one of the children got an equal share.
Okay.
The boys.
Okay.
So if you owned 100 acres and there was 5 kids, they got 20 acres each. And that happened generation to generation. So actually the vineyard holdings are very small.
Right.
Whereas in Bordeaux, only the first son got everything. So you'll see this names over and over and over again. So it is a sign of quality, but they're not exactly the same. The Remy is different than Henri, than Louis. They may have different parcels, but it is a sign that the main vineyards were good.
Right.
They generally, it's not like the one, like the middle son got the crap.
Right.
You know, and generally speaking, they try to be as equitable as they can with regard to the wines. Now in Burgundy, so Burgundy is in the eastern side of France. So like Dijon, where the mustard comes from, it's like around that area, south of that. And almost all the wine, if it says Burgundy, Burgundy is the area. So in France, they're named after the place they're from. So Burgundy is a place. It's like a county. And within that, there's all these different villages. And in Burgundy, if it's a red Burgundy, it's a Pinot Noir.
Okay.
Every time.
Okay.
If it's a white Burgundy, it's 99% Chardonnay.
Okay.
So those are like kind of what's the grape, doesn't matter which town, and there's different aspects of the regions and the soils that make them different. This wine though, so this word Bourgogne means Burgundy. So that's there in French, it's Bourgogne. Okay. But this is a grape called Aligotay. And so Aligotay is probably maybe less than half of 1% of all the, I'll give you a little more, brother. That's not enough for a proper learning. Aligotay is a very rare grape in Burgundy. So I could have brought you a French Burgundy white. There was a Chardonnay, but I want to show you that sometimes these little tiny little grapes that are kind of like, this is, the winemakers used to not sell this. They would grow it and drink it themselves.
Okay.
Like this would be their little wine, because in Burgundy, like the Chardonnay is the queen and the Pinot Noir is the king. This was like the bastard.
Right.
But in reality, now over the last 10, 15 years, some of these producers have started, dude, this Aligotay is amazing.
Someone should have figured this out.
And so now they're starting to like give it a lot of love. So from an Aligotay that used to be like a wine just for their family, this is like one of the very best Aligotays. And Aligotay is got a really pretty aromatics, right? It's going to have like a lot of white flower. It's going to have a lot of stone fruits. And by stone fruits, we mean like anything with a pit. So like apricots and things like that.
I can smell apricot 100%.
Yeah. And then it's going to have a really steely stones. Like it's going to taste
mineral.
Like you like licked a stone. And so, you know, one of the things, well, let's taste it, because it's nothing's worse than talking about it while you're just holding it. I'm like, let's get high on our own supply here. So first one, cheers, brother.
Cheers.
So there's this like racy acidity. This is like a wine when you're like, you know, Holly, your wife's a great cook, right? You got the charcuterie out, you've got olives, you've got cheeses, you've got like, imagine you've got like a rich, creamy cheese, kind of coating your mouth like a triple cream. And you just fire this Aligotay through, and it just like cuts that through and freshens the palate.
Yeah, because it's like it's really dry. That's one thing with white, that if it's sweet, I don't like it. And I don't have the words, but to me, that I would have called that like a very dry white wine that has a very mineral. You're right, I do. I taste like, I want to say like steel, like rusty steel or something.
It's literally got steel and like wet slate, like the gray slate stones. A lot of times, like the areas this is grown could have a lot of stones. It can have like a lot of limestone. It can have a soil content that sort of,
it's crazy.
This grows well. And this almost tastes like, if you've never had an Aligotay before, if you're into, most people haven't, this is almost like a Sancerre, which is a Burgundy, which is not a Burgundy, a Sauvignon Blanc.
I get Sancerres, just because I don't know a lot about wine. I know if I order a Sancerre, I always love it.
Yeah.
It does remind me of that. That's why I like it so much.
This is sort of like, whereas Chardonnay from the area is going to be a little richer, a little more creamy, a little more textural. This is like almost like a Sancerre. And so, and Sancerres are steely and minerally and citrusy. And so this wine is, if you like Sancerre, you like Sauvignon Blanc, you want to try French wine, you know, this wine is probably, I don't know, maybe like, this is an expensive Aligotay. So it's like in probably the like $50 to $80 range.
Okay.
But Remy Jobard makes wines that are $1,000 to $2,000 a bottle. They go to 200 to 400.
That dude's cousin that just is on a plot of land right next to him?
Yeah. Well, Remy Jobard makes Chardonnays, but from some of the most expensive Chardonnay spots within Burgundy. So this is kind of a way to like have the cheapest house in the bougie neighborhood. You're like, oh, what'd you drink last night? I had some Remy Jobard. You don't have to say it's Aligotay. They don't have to know. It's like the hoopty of the, you know, hey, I'm in La Jolla. Okay, even if it's a little yurt, I'm still on the seaside of La Jolla. And so these are like great wines to find. Sometimes if you're looking for wines to buy that are, you can't afford like a $200 bottle, which most people can't. This is a way to drink well, stick to
breaking
the
the
producer,
bank, right.
and just try one of their like outlier wines.
This is amazing.
If you live by the sea, like this is going to warm up a little bit, and we'll try a little bit I'll pour you a little, and we'll drink it after. You'll actually realize a lot of that steeliness will start to go away, and you'll get more of the stone fruitiness.
Okay.
One key little like fact about wine is the colder it is, the more tasteless it is. So the colder it is, like the aromatics and the flavors are like literally being like chemically suppressed by the temperature. So as a wine warms up, we call it blooming, it's going to start changing the flavor. So that's an important thing, to kind of serve a wine a little cooler and then drink it slowly. Don't put it back in the ice bucket.
Oh, okay.
The ice bucket is like keeping it sedated.
See, I would have thought, the bet, any restaurant you go to, a nice restaurant, you order a white, they give you the ice bucket, it stays in there.
Yeah.
The goal is to keep it as cold as possible.
That is for whack wine. Like if it's trash, ice cold. If it's a $4 banger from TJ's, icicle that.
It kind of transfers over to beer, right?
Yeah.
I mean, I could probably drink a relatively warm quality beer. Try drinking a warm Coors Light.
Dude, yeah. Once that Coors Light gets to like warm, it tastes like horse
true
piss.
nature comes out.
Yeah, it
and
tastes
you're
like
what
horse
am I
piss.
fucking drinking?
Literally. So when you get a great white wine, you want to get it nice and cold, pour a few sips, and then you leave it on the table.
Okay.
Look, you can always put it back in the ice.
Yeah,
but you can't warm it up immediately. So great wine is just like pro tip. Pull the cork. Don't smell the cork.
Okay.
Smelling the cork is like fake. What you're supposed to do is all you want for the cork, they used to smell it because if it smelled funky, that meant the wine was funky.
You're just checking if the bottle's bad or
hey, if this cork is nice and firm, you want to pick it up. Is it nice and firm? Then it's a good cork. If it's all crumbling in your hand, then it probably had a bad bottle. So, pro tip, you're on a date, you're trying to ball, pours the wine, grab the cork. You don't smell it. You just pick it up and you just kind of lay it down, pours the wine, give it a nose. Don't even taste it. Just be like, smells right. That's the G move. You're like sensei shit, right? Above and beyond, sometimes when I do stuff, people are like, oh, that was slick. I'm like, I don't need to taste. I just smell the quality. I know. So that's cool.
But you're not kidding. In a way, a person who does this like you do, you can just smell it, and
all I'm smelling for is not that it's good. Like is it flawed?
Right.
Is the wine?
And by smelling, okay, we've got a good bottle here. The waiter can now leave, and I'll get into my tasting.
Does it smell like bong water? Does it smell like cardboard, wet cardboard? Does it smell like stewed fruit? Does it smell rotten? Then if it smells rotten, then it's going to taste rotten.
Right.
So the smell is you're just saying to the sommelier or the wine person, like, hey, this wine is as it should be.
Yes.
And then you move on.
All right. I like these pro tips.
So Remy Jobard, Aligotay, Burgundy, go to your wine shop and say, dude, where's your Aligotay? They're going to know you're a G. They're going to be like, if you're a hipster also, big on Aligotay.
Okay.
What's the wine no one's got from a region? So,
okay.
All right, cool. So now we're going to move to my all-time favorite wine in the world. And that's a big statement for me.
That is.
So this wine is called God Only Knows. Love the label. And I think it's like an applicable situation in life. Like you could say it a lot of ways, like God only knows or God only knows. You can say like it can mean I don't know, or it can mean like certainty.
Right.
And this is made by a guy by the name of Christophe Baron. The winery is called Cayuse, which is I think it's a Native American term that means stones.
Okay.
So the soils, this wine comes from Walla Walla, Washington. And so the soil, the vineyard is like all these rocks everywhere. And this is a Grenache, okay? If you haven't had Grenache before, Grenache is predominantly grown in the Rhone Valley of France. Châteauneuf-du-Pape's, wines from that area will have Syrah and Grenache together. But there's great Grenache grown in like Paso Robles. And this one, though, is the banger of bangers, okay? Now, when you smell this, it's going to smell a little funky. There's going to be a little like fruit and horseshit smell.
There is.
Okay? A little bit of a barnyardy smell, okay? Now,
That's
before we taste this wine, I want to talk to you about the difference between drinking and tasting.
Okay.
Look, I'm a professional. When I drink wine out to dinner, I'm not tasting. I'm drinking. Drinking is, wow, that's good. Wow, that's bad. Tasting is thinking about it. Sometimes you can taste something that you don't like, but you appreciate it. Oh, that's that. It's like art. Like, oh, I don't like Pollock. It's too much splattering. But I like this. I can appreciate it though.
Right.
And
But I don't want it in my house.
Yeah. So I don't want it above my bed, you know?
Right.
So with tasting wine, you're trying to think actively. Like, what am I smelling? Is this good? Do the smells go together? Is the wine cohesive? Does it have a beginning, middle, and an end? It's a more active measure. When I first got into wine, the way they would teach you was you go to the farmer's market and you eat everything raw. When was the last time you had a raw radish without hummus or ranch on it? Right. When was the time you had microgreens and you just ate them raw? Have you had raw fennel? You've had it in a salad. But you start to taste these things and you build like a catalog in your brain of a kumquat, of this fruit. Like when we taste stuff, we normally taste it all combined with stuff.
Right.
You want to start tasting things in their nature. Like, dude, try cumin, put it on your tongue.
Straight up.
Try salt on your tongue and just start to build. And over time, what we do is we build this like catalog. I have 10,000 flavors in my mind.
Right.
And that way, when I smell it,
You can identify.
so when I smell this now, even the shit smell is kind of going to go away a little bit.
Okay.
When you first pop it, it's sort of there. But there's also like this raspberry rhubarbiness in there. There's a little bit of a pepper, white pepper in the wine. And now let's taste it. Now, oftentimes that funky butt smell won't taste like it. You ever had like a... You ever had a like a wash rind cheese?
It's different. I've never had a wine quite like that.
Have you ever had a wash rind cheese, like a stinky cheese?
Yes.
So the stinky, when you taste them, though, they don't taste stinky. They taste creamy.
Right. But when
But
you
that
smell it,
that nose, it's
like
like
doesn't taste like that manure smell.
Yeah.
But it is. I'll use the word. It's got a bitterness to it.
Yeah, there's a little bit of
sour, bitter kind
yeah.
of.
There's like a sourness to the wine, like we would call it like a tartness.
Tart. Maybe that's the word I was trying.
Okay.
Because I know you're not. I don't think that's a good word to use.
Sour
for wine.
isn't bad, but I mean tart is like a cranberry is tart.
Yeah.
So it has a part of the fruit is also the tart. Now this wine is definitely on the funkier side. This is a wine that you would have with food. Okay, for the most part. Now the more we swirl this wine, it's going to open up, and that. So fact check here. So for swirling, if you want to swirl, like you saw me do this, right?
Right.
This is dangerous for a newbie.
Okay.
Because you're going to do what you're doing, which is this.
I was gonna-
Or you're going to get pumped and you're going to
table.
wear it. The table swirl is the G move. Okay?
Yeah, I was already going to spill the damn thing. This is way easier.
Just swirl here, nice and controlled, feeling right. Know you need to be. Just a nice 2-finger little, just a nice little vibe.
Don't grip it like a.
Yeah, you're not. This is not a chalice. This isn't your dong. You know, choke that sucker. Treat it like a lady. You know what I mean? 2-finger move here.
I'm
Okay.
so glad I'm learning this.
Yeah. So this wine, so Cayuse, the guy actually kind of why I don't know that it necessarily smells like this, but part of the reason I think it has that sort of barnyardiness is that he does all of his farming like he had no electricity. All the plow work is done with horses, done with big like Clydesdale horses and a man with a 2-person plow team.
Are you alluding that the horse shit, manure
All
that goes
that,
into the
dude.
soil?
It's
Is that
composting.
where we're picking it up a little?
There can be some of that, but it's basically he's using nature. The horse shit is like composting.
Right.
Then the horse comes and steps in and it like
Grinds
it into the soil, and it creates like a microbiome. You know, I don't think it's the reason it smells like this one smells a little more horse shit. The French would call it barnyard is the term they would use, but other vintages not. But this is part of the way that he takes care of the soil. It's got the horse shit, and then the horses are basically like compressing the dirt and also aerating. So it's a really, really interesting. So this dude's an old school guy. If you go on Cayuse website right now and you try to get on the website to buy wine, it's a 6 to 10 year waiting list for wine.
No.
It's one of the most difficult wines to buy.
People listening are not going to get this bottle.
This one you're not going to get. You're going to have a hard time. Like I struggle to buy 3 bottles a year of this wine.
And you have the connections.
Yeah. Now you're smelling this. You're like, dude, this isn't probably a wine I'm just going to drink on my patio. But if we get some your wife's cooking, roasted chicken, morel mushrooms, get like a stewed rabbit or an osobuco, all this barnyard will then turn into fruit. And it's going to start to like metamorphosize with the wine itself. And so, for me, it's already starting to blow off. So as it's getting air and as it's warming up, it's starting to change. The fruit's changing. The aromatics are changing. It's softening a little bit.
I've never had a red wine quite like that.
Yeah.
I like it, by the way.
Yeah.
it doesn't, I want to refer or remember.
This is not for like, this is like black belt shit.
I
you don't just like
that.
go into this. Like if you go buy this bottle and you're not that into wine, you're going on a date, if say you're the woman, you're taking the man on the date and you're buying the wine. They'll be like, dude, this is ninja level. You got to like work your way up to this.
Well, that's what happens with art. It's just like music. When you listen, people listen to tons of music. They're always listening to very avant-garde stuff.
Yeah.
Because your tastes, you want unique things. You want novelty. You want something you haven't heard before.
When I was young, you said you were a punk. I was a punk.
Yeah.
We love punk. You didn't have to be a good musician to like punk. It was easy to understand, and it was about rage. It was about emotion and anger.
Yep.
Now I'm like, I don't listen to punk anymore. Like I listen to more like, I'm listening to like indie music, a singer-songwriter. Maybe I'm listening to, I still like some hard music, but like I don't want the rage anymore. Now I'm like evolving, and wine's like that. You kind of like gateway drug.
Right.
Like you don't just go to the top of the mountain. You have to work your way up. And with wine, it's a lot like that as well. And so probably like my third and probably final pro tip, when I buy wine, I rarely buy the same thing twice. To me, it's about finding new wine. There's 500,000 wines out there.
You don't find the one you like and
then
get
just
10
like
cases
bang it out.
Right.
No, maybe you have a few of those. It's old standby. Like, dude, I know I need a hit, and this is the wine. But find a great wine shop, not a grocery store.
Right.
Not these wines are not at grocery stores, not at Costco. Not to say they don't have good wine there, but go to a wine shop, and let me tell you that like guy or gal behind the counter has tried all these wines. And just tell them, hey, I want to try something new. Here's my budget. I got $20. You don't have to spend $500. $20. But they're going to take your 10, 15, but they're going to take you to an area to try wine that you've never had before. They're going to say, man, Burgundy, it's too expensive. It's not in your budget. But Aligotay, maybe this will fit. Or maybe this wine from Argentina is going to fit. And so wine is about the adventure. Try new things. So what's the worst case scenario? You spent $20 and you drank it and you didn't love it. Move on.
Right. Awesome, dude. Thank you so much for your insights, for your friendship, for the wine, for everything. And I know this isn't the end. We'll be hanging out again soon.
I was going to say, the next podcast will be in your dining room with your wife cooking, with my wife, with wine, and long, deep conversations.
And none of it will be recorded.
Yes, exactly. No evidence, so we can really say how we feel, man. Cheers, man.
Cheers.
Thank you, Aaron.
Oh, I'll go with this one.
Cheers, man.
I'll go with the good.
Cheers to Tatts and Chats and Tats, man. To the future, brother.
Thank you, Landon. So real quick, where can people find you? And any obviously 100 Acre Wine is your company that
you check us out on Instagram. We're just getting started on Instagram with our new project at fortunatesonwines, plural.com.
Okay.
Check out our other project at summerdreamswines.com.
Okay.
We have new websites launching, fusions of art, culture, and people. We don't do things the natural, the boring way. And 100acre.com, you'll come check it out, but you won't see anything. We have no websites, no social media, because we're just kind of like playing aloof. We're cool. Too cool for school. And check out my Instagram at Landon_100acre.com to see my travels, wine, my future child, my wife, and beyond. And come on the journey with me, man. We'd love to see you, and I'll see you on your journey.
100%. And I will join you on that journey. And I think a lot of people listening will as well. So thank you again. And all you people watching today, thank you for tuning in. Every Wednesday, we drop a new episode. Check it out. Thank you so much for all the love, support, subscriptions, comments. Keep them coming. And we'll keep this thing going. Until then, take care.
Awesome,
Peace out.
man. Cheers.